If you're the woman who built something with your bare hands and then watched someone else smile for the cameras, this story is for you. If you've ever swallowed your own name so someone else could shine, pull your blanket a little closer. Tonight's confession on Her Untold Revenge is going to sit in your chest. My name is Alessandra Ruiz Caldwell. I'm a mechanical engineer from Tacoma, Washington. And the patent that made my husband a local celebrity was drawn at my kitchen table, in my handwriting, with graphite smudged along the side of my palm. I grew up in a loud, close-knit Mexican-American family where the women were brilliant but quiet about it. My abuela used to say, "Mija, a woman's strength is in how she supports her husband." It wasn't said cruelly. It was said like a recipe. Like fact. At every family barbecue in our backyard, under those damp Pacific Northwest skies, the men stood around the grill, debating politics and investments, and the women carried trays of carne asada and nodded. My mother handled my father's bookkeeping for his auto shop for 23 years. His name was on the building. Her handwriting was in every ledger. That was the tradition. When I married Ethan Caldwell at 28, my family loved that he was ambitious. He had that confident startup energy, that I can see the future tone in his voice. What they didn't fully register was that I could see it too. I just didn't talk as loudly. We met working at a renewable energy firm in Seattle. I was the one who stayed late running stress simulations on turbine components. He was the one who pitched ideas in glass conference rooms. The idea for the portable micro-hydro generator started during a camping trip near Mount Rainier. The river was roaring from snowmelt, cold and relentless, and Ethan joked about bottling all that wasted energy. I remember sitting there, boots muddy, staring at the current and seeing the blade angles in my mind. I sketched in the margins of our trail map that night in the tent while he slept. Back home, I built the first prototype in our garage. The air always smelled like sawdust and motor oil. Rain tapped against the metal door while I calibrated the rotor housing to handle debris flow. My fingers cracked from cold aluminum. I burned my forearm once soldering a connection at 2 a.m. Ethan would come out sometimes, kiss the top of my head, and say he believed in our invention. But when we started talking about filing the patent, that old family script slid into place like it had been waiting. "It'll be cleaner if it's in one name," he said casually, leaning against the workbench. "Investors like a clear founder." Clear founder. I remember the fluorescent light humming above us. I remember the taste of metal in the back of my throat. I remember thinking about my mother's neat rows of numbers in my father's shop ledger. He added, softer, "You know I'd never cut you out. This is ours. Have you ever agreed to something because you didn't want to look difficult?" I signed the assignment paperwork transferring my rights before the patent was officially filed. My signature looked steady. My stomach did not. The day the patent was granted, Ethan opened champagne. The cork hit the garage ceiling and rolled under my drafting table. He posted on LinkedIn about his breakthrough in sustainable portable energy solutions. Hundreds of likes. Local tech blogs reached out. At a launch event in Seattle, he stood under bright white lights with a projection of my CAD renderings behind him. He said, "I" 12 times in his speech. I counted. I wore a navy dress and clapped until my palms stung. That night, my 12-year-old niece Sophia tugged on my sleeve at the after-party. She had braces and glitter nail polish, and this wild halo of dark curls that never quite behaved. "Tia Alessandra," she said, eyes wide. "Mama says Uncle Ethan is an inventor." "That's so cool." I knelt to her level, smoothing her hair back. "It is cool," I said. She grinned. "Maybe one day my husband will invent something, and I'll help him." It was innocent. Completely innocent. But something in my chest tightened like a bolt turned one click too far. Years passed in this strange duality. Publicly, Ethan's company grew. Privately, I refined every design iteration. I optimized blade curvature. I solved the cavitation issue that nearly killed the second-generation prototype. I answered technical emails from field testers using an alias so it looked like customer support. When licensing conversations began with a major outdoor equipment manufacturer based in Oregon, Ethan handled the meetings. He'd rehearse in our living room, pacing in front of the fireplace, practicing his visionary founder tone. Once, during a Zoom call I wasn't supposed to be part of, I heard an executive ask about the adaptive flow algorithm. Ethan hesitated. Just a fraction. Then he paraphrased something I had explained to him the night before. After he hung up, I said quietly, "You might want me in the next technical review." He laughed. Not unkindly. "Babe, you're the brain. I'm the face. That's just how this works. That's just how this works. Do you know what it does to you to hear your life reduced to a supporting role? The real fracture didn't come from investors. It came from family. 3 summers after the patent was granted, we were at my parents' house again. The same backyard, the same grill smoke clinging to the damp air. Sophia was 15 now. Taller, sharper. She had started a robotics club at her high school in Tacoma. I found her sitting on the back steps, staring at her phone. "What's wrong?" I asked. She shrugged, trying to act casual. "The robotics regional finals are the same weekend as Uncle Ethan's product showcase. Mom says we should all go support him. She says my competition is just a school thing." Just a school thing. I felt heat rise up my neck. Sophia kicked at the concrete. "It's fine. I mean, it's not like I invented something." I sat beside her. The moss between the pavers was damp and bright green from the constant drizzle. "You built something," I said. She looked at me, searching my face. "But it's not like patented or whatever." In that moment, I saw the inheritance of silence passing to another generation, not because anyone was evil, because it was comfortable. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and distant rain. I stared at the ceiling and replayed every compromise. Every time I told myself it was easier this way. Every time I chose peace over presence. The breaking point came 6 months later. Sophia called me, her voice shaking. Her robotics team had won regionals. She had designed a modular joint system that allowed their robot to adapt to uneven terrain. A local newspaper interviewed the team. When the article came out, her coach was quoted extensively. Sophia's name was mentioned once, at the very end, spelled wrong. "I shouldn't care," she said into the phone. Coach did a lot. I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter so hard my knuckles whitened. I could see myself at 28 in her apology. What would you tell a girl you love if she's already learning to disappear? That question sat with me for days. Around that time, the Oregon manufacturer sent over a draft licensing agreement worth 8 figures over 10 years. 8 figures. My chest went cold when Ethan slid the packet across the dining table. "We did it," he said, eyes shining. He had already initialed several pages. I read every line. Buried in the definitions section was a clause referencing all associated proprietary algorithms and design improvements developed to date. Developed to date. Many of those improvements were never formally assigned to Ethan's company. They lived in my personal design files, on my laptop, time-stamped, version-controlled, documented in engineering notebooks with dates and signatures. He assumed they were automatically his. That night, while he slept, I opened my old hard drives. The faint whirring sound felt like a heartbeat. I pulled up the original CAD files, the simulation logs, the email threads where I explained technical solutions in detail. I found the trail map sketch from Mount Rainier, edges worn soft. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt precise. I scheduled a consultation with a patent attorney in Portland named Grace Liu. I took a personal day from my engineering job and drove down I-5 in steady gray rain, windshield wipers keeping time with my pulse. Grace wore square glasses and listened without interrupting as I laid everything out. The garage prototypes, the assignment, the improvements never transferred. When I finished, she folded her hands. "Alessandra," she said carefully, "you assigned the original patent rights, yes, but if you can prove substantial independent development of subsequent claims and algorithms that were never formally conveyed, you have leverage. Significant leverage. For 2 years, quietly, I worked with Grace. We documented everything. We filed provisional patents on the adaptive flow algorithm and the debris shedding blade, modification under my name. We created a separate LLC, all legally airtight, all above board. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I built. The licensing deal stalled because the manufacturer's due diligence team flagged discrepancies between the patent claims and the actual working prototypes. They wanted assurances regarding the unassigned improvements. Ethan was blindsided. "I don't understand," he muttered one evening, pacing. "They're saying there are IP gaps." I watched him, calm. "There are." The manufacturer requested a joint meeting in Seattle. Their executives, Ethan, legal counsel, technical review. Grace squeezed my shoulder before we walked into the glass-walled conference room overlooking Elliott Bay. The water outside was steel gray, ferries cutting slow white lines across the surface. This is the moment you've been waiting for, and I need you to sit in it with me. The room smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. A long walnut table stretched down the center. Floor-to-ceiling windows let in muted afternoon light. 8 people were seated when we entered. Ethan looked tired but confident. He gave me a quick, puzzled glance, clearly not expecting me to be there with counsel. One of the executives, a woman in a charcoal suit named Dana Whitaker, stood to greet us. Her handshake was firm. "Thank you all for coming," she said evenly. "We need clarity before proceeding." We took our seats. I sat across from Ethan. For a second, our eyes met. There was confusion there, maybe a flicker of concern. Dana began. "During due diligence, our engineers identified key performance features in the Gen 3 prototype that are not fully covered by the original patent claims, specifically the adaptive flow algorithm and the reinforced debris shedding blade design." Ethan nodded slowly. "Those are internal optimizations." Grace slid a folder across the table. The sound of heavy cardstock against wood was louder than it should have been. "With respect," Grace said calmly, "those optimizations are protected under separate, provisional filings submitted 18 months ago. Under Miss Ruiz Caldwell's name, silence. Not dramatic movie silence. Real silence. The kind where someone shifts in their chair and the leather creaks." Ethan blinked. "What?" Grace did not raise her voice. "Alessandra Ruiz Caldwell is the sole inventor listed on these subsequent filings. Documentation demonstrates independent development post-assignment of the original." Dana opened the folder. I watched her eyes move line by line. She nodded once. Ethan turned to me fully now. "Alessandra, what is this?" His voice wasn't angry yet. It was disoriented. I folded my hands on the table to keep them steady. My palms were warm. My spine felt like steel. "It's accurate," I said. "The adaptive flow algorithm, the debris shedding modification, the field calibration matrices, I developed those independently. They were never assigned to Caldwell Energy." He stared at me as if recalibrating who I was. "I thought we were a team." "We were," I said softly. "But a team requires recognition." Dana cleared her throat gently. "From our perspective, any licensing agreement must include rights to these additional protections. Without them, the product as demonstrated cannot be manufactured at scale." Translation: without me, there was no deal. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You did this behind my back." I held his gaze. "I built this in the open. You just never put my name on it." Another silence. Thicker now. Grace spoke again. "Our position is straightforward. Any licensing agreement will list Miss Ruiz Caldwell as co-inventor and co-licenser for all relevant IP. Revenue distribution will reflect that structure. Alternatively, she is prepared to license her improvements independently." Dana looked between us, assessing. "From a business standpoint, formal co-licensing is the cleanest solution." Ethan's shoulders dropped slightly. I could see calculations happening behind his eyes. "Pride, money, reputation." He exhaled slowly. "So what exactly are you asking for?" It was almost steady, almost controlled. I slid a single page across the table. Not dramatic, not thick, just one page. It outlined a restructured licensing agreement. 50% of net licensing revenue, allocated to my LLC for the algorithm and design improvements. Formal public acknowledgement as co-inventor across all marketing materials. Amendment to the original patent record, recognizing joint contribution, where legally permissible, retroactive compensation clause triggered upon execution. No yelling, no threats, just math and law. Ethan read it. His face flushed, then paled. "You could tank this entire deal," he said quietly. "I could," I agreed. "But I'm not here to tank it. I'm here to correct it." Dana leaned back, fingers steepled. "If both parties sign, we can proceed within 30 days. The bay outside shimmered as a fairy horn echoed faintly through the glass. I remember that sound so clearly. Low, certain. Ethan looked around the room. 8 witnesses, lawyers, executives, reality. Finally, he nodded once. It was small, but it was surrender. "Draft the revisions," he said. In that moment, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt aligned, like a bone that had been out of place for years had finally been set back correctly. When we left the building, the air smelled like salt and rain. Ethan walked beside me in silence. Our footsteps echoed on the wet pavement. He stopped before we reached the car. "Why didn't you just tell me you were this angry?" I looked at the gray sky, then back at him. "Because I wasn't angry," I said. "I was erased." He had no answer. The licensing deal closed 3 months later. The press release listed both our names. My phone buzzed non-stop the day it went live. Colleagues from my engineering firm texted congratulations. My mother cried when she saw Alessandra Ruiz Caldwell, co-inventor, in print. But the moment that mattered most wasn't public. It was Sophia's state robotics championship. The gym smelled like metal bleachers and popcorn. Banners hung from the rafters. I sat in the front row with my parents. Ethan was there too, quieter now. Sophia's team unveiled their robot. When the announcer described the modular joint system, he said, clearly, designed by Sophia Martinez. Her name, spelled correctly, echoing through speakers. She found me in the crowd afterward, eyes shining. Tia, did you hear that? I did, I said, pulling her into a hug. She smelled like machine oil and vanilla shampoo. She leaned back, studying my face. Mom says you're on the patent now, that you fixed it. I smiled gently. I didn't fix it. I claimed it. She nodded slowly, like she was filing that away for her future self. The final symbol sits on my desk as I tell you this. That original trail map from Mount Rainier, the one with the first blade sketch in the margin. I had it framed after the deal closed. Graphite lines, slightly smudged. My handwriting unmistakable. For years, it was folded and forgotten in a drawer. Now it hangs where I can see it every day. Not as revenge. Not even as proof. As a reminder. You can support someone and still stand in your own name. You can love someone and still require recognition. And if the world tries to write you out of your own story, there are pens and lawyers and contracts that can write you back in. If this story felt a little too familiar, if you've ever watched someone else cash a check built from your silence, subscribe to Her Untold Revenge. Share this with the woman in your life who needs to hear that calm correction is sometimes the most devastating kind of power. And the next time you sign your name, make sure it stays there.